Halli, hallo. The next talk on this main stage will be done by Diana Bedoya.
Yes.
Oh, good. Ooh. And it will be about the improvement of contact centers with instant messaging, or the improvement of instant messaging within the context of contact centers.
And in case you are following this stage on stream, feel free to ask your questions in the General Matrix Summit 2023 room.
Okay,
Diana,
thank you.
Thank
you very much, guys. Okay, thank you very much. Welcome. As Jan told you, my name is Diana, or Diana, as you like. I am a software engineer from Colombia. I work in a company called Icono Telecomunicaciones. We've been in the business of call centers and contact centers for over 15 years now. For our VoIP call centers, we use Asterisk. And a few years ago, our customers started to ask about a solution to manage chat, which we didn't have at that point. So we started a very deep research about what options we had to provide chat for our customers. And we found Matrix, and we fell in love with Matrix because it's open, because the community is very passionate about building a communication network free of hidden agendas, and because we saw the power of bridges that we needed at that point, and application services in general. So we adopted Matrix in our company. How we use Matrix? Okay, everything starts with a customer's message. Well, let's say more than an end user message, because our customers are companies, okay? And our customers' customers are end users. So let's say that everything starts with an end user message. We use Matrix bridges to receive that message, and we use signups as our home server. Standing next to the signups is our application service, the ACD. That stands for Automatic Chat Distributor. When the message gets that point, the ACD takes control over the chat from that point on. The ACD has the job of inviting the menu flow to presenting the available options to the customer. Menu flow is a very important piece of software we have in the platform because it's the first one that interacts with the customer when texts presenting the available options. My friend here, Esteban, gave a talk yesterday about menu flow and all the capabilities it has to build bots with just adding a YAML configuration file. When the customer picks an option that takes him to an agent, the ACD is responsible for assigning an agent to the chat to make the interactions the end user has or the request the user has. Our contact center agents and the supervisor user, they use a modified version of Element. We have added several options to handle chats, like transferring chats, resolving chats, sending templates, creating customers, making pauses, and a lot more. We can talk about later if you want to. We have had some issues trying to implement Instagram and Facebook bridges because when Meta detects that we have bot activity in the conversation, that they ban our accounts, and that has happened many times now. So we are working on a new bridge that uses the Meta APIs because we need to be able to receive messages from Instagram and Facebook too. The WhatsApp message works very well, and that's the main bridge. Sorry, the WhatsApp bridge is the one that we are mainly using right now because it's working very well and we don't get banned with using that bridge. Okay, now I'm going to tell you about the ACD, the application service that we built, the Automatic Chat Distributor. We had a first version of the ACD. It was a good version. It did its job until our customers started to grow bigger than 12,000 chat rooms. At that point, we started to have very big performance issues. The first one was that the ACD bot was taking too long to log in, even several minutes to log in. And in the meantime, we were missing some messages, we were missing some events, and that was unacceptable because the bot was not reliable anymore. And the second issue we started to have was that the agents were taking even longer to log in using Element. Some of our agents were taking up to 20 minutes to log in, so you can imagine that was a nightmare for our customers. We even lost some customers for that. At that point, the Matrix community was very helpful because we opened an issue in GitHub, and from the feedback we got, we learned that the chat rooms the agent is kicked from are taken into account in the sync process, but the rooms the agent leaves are not taken into account in the sync process. And the ACD were kicking the agents out of the rooms when the conversation ended. Maybe you wonder why we don't let the agent leave the rooms themselves. And the reason of that is that when a conversation ends, the ACD makes some operations that need to be done as a whole. When a conversation ends, the ACD sends some goodbye messages to the customer, sends some state events to mark the room as resolved, and makes the agent leave the room. So that's why we letting the agent leave the room was not good for us, was not working for us. I'm going to tell you later about how we solved that. Another inconvenience we have with our first version of the ACD was that we needed one instance of the bot per WhatsApp line. Some of our customers have more than one WhatsApp line. So given that we use the ACD bot user to log in the WhatsApp bridge, we needed a second and a third user, and so a second and a third instance of the bot to log into the WhatsApp bridge, depending on the number of lines the customer has. Also, in our first version, we only had commands to communicate with the bot. And the big disadvantage we saw with this approach was that it was very difficult to process the response to the commands because responses were also text messages sent to some control room. With all of these issues with our bot, with our ACD bot, we decided to evolve to an application service built with Matrix Python. Given that the ACD is now an application service, it doesn't have to sync anymore. So all events and messages are properly delivered to the ACD by the signups, even if we stop and start the service. And thanks to identity assertion and namespaces, the ACD is able to masquerade as the agent to leave the room instead of kicking the agents. And with that, we resolved the 10 login minutes issue we were having, and the time was reduced to some seconds. When the agent is joined to just a few chats. But at that point, the history of the agent in thousands of rooms were not a problem anymore. And now our biggest customer has around 70,000 rooms, chat rooms, and it is not a problem anymore. The syncing of the ACD, the syncing doesn't happen anymore, but agents can log in without a problem now. As for the multiple instances, we have a reserved namespace with the application service that is ACD, and we just have to create new users for each line the customer has, with just one instance of the application service. Also, with this new version, apart from the commands we have in the first version, we also added an HTTP API to communicate with the bot more directly and to remove the possible delays and parsing and processing problems of text messages as responses to commands as we were having in the first version. Okay. This is the cycle of an incoming chat. The first task of the ACD is to set up the chat room. The ACD makes the room public, so the supervisor users can join anytime without an invitation. It also publishes the room in the room directory and make the history word readable to have a preview of the chat at any time by the agent or by the supervisor. And it also sends some commands to the bridge to set the power levels of the ACD in the room and to enable relay mode. Relay mode is important because we need that not only the ACD message being properly bridged to the customer, but also agents and supervisor messages are delivered to the end user. So that's why we enable relay mode. After the chat room setup, the ACD invites the menu flow, the bot of the menu flow, to present the available options to the customer. And when the customer selects an option that takes him to an agent, the ACD masquerades at the menu bot to leave the room to avoid the performance problem I told you. And if there is no available agents in the option selected by the customer, the ACD enqueues the chat and starts a process of checking when an available agent is there to join the room. And when finally the ACD finds that available agent, it joins the agent to the chat. The ACD remembers the last assigned agent per option. So when the ACD needs to pick an agent for a chat, it selects the agent that is next to the last assigned agent. It is possible that in the middle of a conversation, the user requests to talk to an agent of a different area. So we have the concept of transfers in the ECD2. What it does is just masquerades as the old agent to leave the room and joins another agent that he picks or that it picks from the target option in the transfer. Finally, when the conversation ends, the ACD resolves the chat and performs the operation over the room that I told you about making the agent leaving the room, sending state events for reports purposes, and sending the message to the customer to say this chat has ended. And that's it. If the user texts again, we don't have to do the chat room setup anymore because the chat is reused. The history of the customer is always there. And just the cycle starts all over again. Well, two main components of the contact center are queues and agents. Queues are just groups of agents of a specific area. For example, the sales queue, the customer service queue, the technical support queue. And the ACD has endpoints to handle the queues, to create queues, delete queues, add agents to queues, or remove agents from queues. The ACD also handles the operations of the agents over each one of the queues, like login, logout, pause, and unpause. Okay, guys, now I'm going to show you a short example of the ACD in action. I'm going to write from this WhatsApp number. Let's say I'm a customer from some of the companies we have. So let's say something here. Hopefully this is going to work. And as you can see, the menu flow presents me the options available in this company. The supervisor user here is invited to all chats that are created in the platform. That's an option that can be enabled or disabled anytime using the configuration file. The ACD has a long list of options that are in a YAML configuration file. So the supervisor users always have a list of active chat rooms in the list of chat rooms here. Okay, if I pick option 3, I'm just going to receive a text message with the business hours of the company. And if I go back and I pick sales, the ACD is going to assign me an agent. This time is Darwin. Let's say this is the agent interface. I don't know if this is Darwin. Yes. And I can see here my assigned chat. Okay. This is an automatic message that the ACD sends when it finds an agent and assigns the agent to the chat. And I can start just texting with the customer here. Or let me do something here very fast. I need another agent. I forgot to log in the agent at first. Okay. Sorry, it took longer than it should. This is agent 2. Okay. Let's say I need an agent from support. So I'm going to write, I have a problem. From the agent interface here, I see the message that the customer sent me. And obviously, this customer needs to talk to someone in the technical support team. So I'm going to use this option here for transfers. I can transfer to a specific agent or general queues. So I'm going to use the queue support here. And what the ACD does, as you can see here, is to join a new agent from the other queue, the support queue, and act as Darwin to leave the room. I can see here in Daniel's interface that I got this new chat, and I can interact with the customer from this point on, because Darwin is not here anymore. Okay, when the conversation ends, let's say these two persons tested a lot of messages, I can use the resolve chat here. I can resolve the chat with or without the message to the customer. Let's send a message to the customer, and I am not in the chat anymore, and the customer gets the ending chat message. The supervisor is always the supervisor leaves the room too when the agent is resolved, because the supervisor only has the list of active chat messages all the time in this list. Okay, that was a fast example of how the ACD works. Let's continue. Yes, and to finish, I want to tell you about what we are working on right now. We want to have an advanced chat in queuing because we want to have a limited number of chats per agent. Right now, we distribute the chat without taking into account how many chats the agent is handled at a certain point. So we want to have like a queue that only distributes the chat when the agent's, let's say, spots are available, but without giving the agent more than a limited number of chats. We also want to implement new distribution strategies. Right now, we just have like a linear distribution strategy. So in some cases, it is more useful to have different distribution strategies, like assigning the chat to the agent with the fewest assigned chats or the oldest assigned chats, or using a random strategy, something like that. We are exploring that option too. And we really want to have a more complete report module. Right now, we have a dashboard with some basic reports, and the information of that reports are grabbed from a Synapse database, just from there. But we really need to have a more complete set of reports. We want chat reports, agent reports, transfer reports, chat timelines with status changes, and a lot more. So we are building our own database, and we have designed a lot of events that the ACD publishes when some things happens in the chat that interest us. So we are working on that. We are using JetStream as a message broker to add a persistence of the message, to add acknowledge and retrying of the messages, events in case the service gets down or something like that. And we also are working on the service that listen the events and feed the database that we are going to use later to build the reports we want. And the events we are implementing in the ACD will also enable us to have a real monitoring interface for the supervisor, so he can see all the time what is happening with the contact center in terms of chat. So that's it, guys. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please let me know. Yes, that's what we wanted to share in this talk.
Thank you. Do we have questions?
First of all, thanks you for the interesting talk. I found the project very interesting. I wanted to ask, how does the queuing work? So like as I started from the demo, like there's a small group called sales that the agents are inside it, or like join this group. So it's just like saying which agent is online and assigning the chat to that agent, or is it like another way, not very clear in the demo, shown in the demo or something?
Okay, queues are just rooms, matrix rooms, simple matrix rooms. The also availability of an agent is composed of the agent being online. No, that's not true. That's not true, because the agent can close the interface and not being online. At our first version used that presence from Matrix, but not anymore. We have an ACD database, and every time an agent logins, we mark the agent at his login, and the agent has to be on pause too, because the agent can pause and unpause. If the agent is logged in and unpaused, that means the agent is available to assign a chat. The ACD knows who agents are in what queue, because we just get the agents in the room, the members of the room. So that's a simple concept there, just matrix rooms.
Okay.
Thank you for the talk and also for the demo. Very interesting. I did not understand what the performance issue was with kicking people from a room and why masquerading as a user solved this.
Okay.
Can you explain that again?
Yes, of course. kicking the agents, the rooms from which a user is kicked. We did a lot of experiments with that, so I can say it for sure. The rooms where a user is kicked are taken into account in the sync process. When a user logins, the sync process, I don't know what he does, but the history of the rooms where the agent has been kicked are included there. But when a user leaves the room, different from being kicked, are not taken into account in that sync process. So
do you have an idea why that is the case? Like for me, both rooms would be left rooms, and I don't understand why they would be synced.
We tried to debug signups at that time, and we just saw that there were very long queries, SQL queries there. And we tried to debug it and change them, and we couldn't find the way to solve that. That's why we opened the issue, and somebody mentioned, hey, you should leave the room instead of kicking the agents. And that's how we went, that was the way we decided to go. And that worked. But we needed an application service that was able to masquerade as the user to leave the room, because as I told you, we couldn't let the agent to leave the room themselves. We needed to have control over that.
Sure, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm curious how you deal with the GDPR question. Does the user know the history of where his message will be? Is the rooms are encrypted? What happened to the history of messages, etc.? Thank you.
Can you say that again, please? We don't have encryption. We don't have encryption in the contact centers. The rooms are not encrypted. Any of the rooms. What was the first part?
The GDPR question. For example, I'm a user. I send a message in WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I don't want my message to be somewhere else. You know, it's just a GDPR question. How you deal with this, with GDPR?
GDPR?
Does not apply in Colombia.
What is GDPR? I don't know.
You want to explain what
You can explain it.
Oh.
Yeah, General Data
like
Protection
privacy
Act
policy
is
and the
GDPR is a European law that requires some privacy.
Ah, okay.
But yeah, you might not care about it as you are not based in the European Union.
We don't have customers in Europe. All of our customers are mostly from Colombia, some in South America, not in Europe. But we do have, most of our customers, the first message the end user receives is like, do you accept the data policy we have, and a link to the data policy document? And if the user accepts, so the bot continues the conversation. If the user says, I don't accept, so the chat ends there, and we just don't follow the conversation anymore. So we have kind of that, but not like maybe not that strict like here in Europe.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Any more questions?
Looking at the stream. No questions from the stream.
Okay.
Last call. Oh, there's one after all. Great.
So in case the customer started a conversation, okay, then have ended this conversation, he came back to this conversation again. So how do you manage it? Do you actually redirect him to the same queue, or to the same agent? Can the new agent see the old history, or is it considered a new chat?
No, it's always the same chat. If the end user writes from the same number, WhatsApp number, let's say, the history is always there. In fact, that is a thing we needed, because when a new agent receives the chat, he needs to know what happened with the chat in days before, to help the customer service to know what the user wrote before about and that stuff. So yes, when a new agent joins the room, he can see the history. That was something we needed, actually.
Okay, a last call for any questions. Okay, thank you, Diana.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.